All right, Anil Patel, welcome to Bitcoin for Millennials.
Hey, Bram. Thanks for having me, man. I'm psyched.
Well, I'm psyched that you're here. I mean, your stuff has helped me along the way. And I think it's really cool what you are doing. Like, you are really putting your skills to work for Bitcoin. And we'll go through some slides that you made, some educational material. But what I especially like about your content is that you are simplifying all these different concepts that touch Bitcoin without dumbing it down. I would say, like, the educated point still comes across, right? And I think there's actually kind of a trap when you're trying to dumb it down, because Bitcoin in essence is quite profound, as you might agree with, right? So that's what I really like. But in Bitcoin education in general, what are kind of like the pitfalls that you are seeing? Is that kind of maybe the dumbing it down, or just thinking that everyone already understands what you're talking about? Like, what are kind of things that you're seeing?
Yeah, that's a really good point, is communicating to others as if they know everything you know, which is rarely the case. The other big trap is simply trying to sound smart, which I definitely fell into a lot, where I was trying to impress people that I knew all this information about Bitcoin rather than actually trying to help them get to another level of understanding. So it's just, you have to slay your own ego a little, because you have to meet people where they are. You have to not be triggered by any of their preconceptions. Because if you're genuinely trying to get someone to another level of understanding, it's not about you. It's just about them. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna try out the image sharing thing on here, but first I wanted to show this image that you created. Let me see, this one, the polymath one. You recently tweeted, Bitcoin is for polymaths. With this image, it says systems design, Austrian economics, communication networks, game theory, innovation, mathematics, energy, and software. Now, of course, the kind of like meme in Bitcoin is everything you don't know about computers combined with everything you don't know about finance. Here you are showcasing a lot more. Do you also think that, like, this is one of the challenges that we have in general?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you need to know a little bit about so many different unrelated areas to make sense of this beast that is Bitcoin. And it just kind of hits home the point that the learning is never done. You keep going forever. But the most useful way to spend your time is maybe, instead of going very, very deep down just one rabbit hole, be it economics or game theory, it's you kind of have to branch out a bit. You want to kind of understand how Bitcoin operates across everything from, as the monetary asset to as a communications network, to how the mechanics of blocks actually come together in terms of like an accounting protocol. So yeah, you have to go broad. You can't stay in your lane, so to speak.
And what were like the first topics that you touched or that you were familiar with, where Bitcoin kind of showed itself to you and you were like, oh yeah, I understand this part? And then maybe also, what was the first part where you were like, okay, this is kind of intimidating now that I have to understand this as well?
Yeah, this was very humbling for me, because I went through, your traditional business school Keynesian education. And so when I got to Bitcoin and everyone's telling me, oh, you need to go back to first principles and understand like microeconomics from a very solid foundation, I'm thinking, I've studied economics. I got this. Don't worry. And to recognize I knew nothing, I had no idea what I was talking about in a field I was very confident about, made me go back and think, oh, I need to reassess everything. And that's kind of why I spent a good couple of years just trying to really hone the first principles that are essential to understanding Bitcoin, kind of these like foundations that you need to build your knowledge on.
It's interesting to hear your background, because my next question was actually about, the smart people problem, the yuppie elite dismiss Bitcoin problem. You've spoken about how even, MBA grads and finance professionals have a hard time getting Bitcoin. Why do you think traditional education fails these people when it comes to technology, and maybe also what kind of mental shift should they go through, or what happened for you? Like what made you so humble, or what made you able to humble yourself, basically? I think that's it, right? Like humbling yourself. That meme is more about, okay, just realize you just don't know anything, basically, about money and energy and all these things.
Yeah, it's a very big, broad question. For context, so I have studied at 3 different business schools on 3 different continents, and then I went to work for a business school as well. So I was in this bubble for almost a decade of my life, and the whole point of that process and that whole industry is about de-risking your career. There's not really any other goal. It's how do you give yourself, you're paying to guarantee a certain path, and a piece of paper that will give you access to certain walled gardens or industries. So the people going into them are generally, firstly, you're either confused because you're looking for a career change, you're looking for more certainty, and most of the incentive is tied to your future economic rewards as a result of going down this path. And the other is you're already on that path and you just want to accelerate your trajectory. But the end goal is the same. You're actively not looking to take risk in most cases for the majority of people that go down that path. So you're just not primed to spot something that fundamentally is a shift in humanity's trajectory, right? And a new monetary asset appearing in front of that group of people, their skepticism is going to be so great, their desire for that thing to fail, because otherwise it's going to, destroy all of the work they've put in. It makes sense that they would be either against it, ignore it, or continue to be ignorant of it. Yeah. So it's just a really unfortunate situation.
I think this is a different conversation, but you would think that academics or people that are close to academics would actually be constantly curious, right? Like that is the entire point of academic research, I would say. Like there is no final truth and everything can be questioned, etc. But I think you're an explainer of how this is kind of designed to put you into a certain job and keep that kind of like engine going, I think. And I mean, my daily activities in the trenches of LinkedIn, I think I'm also confronted a lot with people that, have all these titles, MBA, CFP, CFA, whatever, 20 years experience in finance. And they're like, it's a scam, where I think that's what bothers me most, in a sense that I'm just so surprised people aren't curious. That's I think, above all, it.
Well, they're playing a status game, right? And they need to not only increase their status, but they need to protect the status they already have. So if in front of their entire group, publicly, if they're going to embrace an idea that is very against the groupthink, that puts their current status at risk. So there's just no reason for them to do that publicly. Now, maybe I know people who privately have a very different opinion about Bitcoin than what they share publicly. And it's very intentional and it's very unfortunate. But it's just the incentives. So it sucks. Yeah. That's why you get why Bitcoin LinkedIn is so different from Bitcoin Twitter.
You have to be to be humble to actually accept that you have no clue about what money is and stuff like that, right? And that's also why, with all the critics that you see, like how they talk about it or the words that they use, like it instantly shows that they didn't get beyond phase one, basically, thinking it's a scam, right? That's it. That's it.
Yeah, there's only so much work you can do, right? I spent about close to a year researching deeply different kinds of scams, more specifically Ponzi schemes, and how it relates to central banking, and showing Bitcoin as the complete opposite of that. And no matter how many times I lay that out to someone, if they're not receptive or you're telling them something that breaks their worldview, they're just not gonna take it in. But I'm glad I still experience skeptics regularly today. I gave a talk, and this is why I love encouraging people to read more history about when periods of innovation happened. And so I gave a talk at a conference 2 days ago, and I was comparing gold mining and Bitcoin mining with the natural ice harvesting industry before refrigeration. And that when refrigeration popped up, you had this whole incumbent industry that was very against it. And you compare them side by side, and it's the same playbook. 200 years apart, exactly same playbook, because humans haven't changed. It's just the technology around us is changing, right? Mm-hmm. And just the more examples you see of that, the more you're everything that's happening with Bitcoin's adoption curve and the trajectory it's going, it just makes perfect sense. Of course this is going to happen.
Yeah. It's very important that people kind of understand the scale of the thing we're trying to do, right? This is not the mini disc or the disc man or whatever, right? That's not what we're talking about here. But maybe we'll get to that. I'll pull up just the first slide. So our idea is you brought 10 key concepts. We're just going to go through it. You just talk your talk. You talk about how you share it with people, how you illustrate it, and cool. Then I'll reflect on the drink and jam, and then.
Sounds good. I mean, this is just, I think, the most fundamental thing for people to understand is that you're obviously spending most of your time out in the world trying to earn a living, right? You're exchanging your labor or work, and you're being compensated. And then you take your compensation, you have expenses and things you consume. And if there is anything left over, which I understand applies to less and less people in a fiat system, but if you have anything left over, that's your savings. And then if you have savings, you have a big problem, because now you can't use the default option, which is just keeping it in a piggy bank or under your mattress or in a bank account. You have to actually go out and be a financial analyst and look at all your options, weigh them up, and make the best decision for you. So, this is why anytime the word hoarding comes up in relation to Bitcoin or in terms of money, to me, that's just a huge red flag of someone that doesn't understand this very basic equation. Because if you're against people hoarding, and hoarding is just another word for savings, by the way, you're basically saying you want everyone to live paycheck to paycheck, have zero savings, and be very fragile. The whole point of having savings is to insulate yourself, your family, and actually become less dependent on the state. Now, the state obviously has very different goals. Maybe they want their citizens to become more dependent on them. Maybe that's good for them. But ultimately, I really find it hard to believe anyone could be against people having savings for their family for a rainy day.
If the money is being infinitely created and printed, then the money that you want to use for your savings is also infinitely devalued. So you can actually hoard more units, but if each unit loses its purchasing power, then you're basically going against the stream, or it's an uphill battle for you to actually create an amount that can buy you at least the same amount of stuff whenever in the future, right? Whenever you would decide to do that. And so, it's interesting that this feels so basic, right? But
yes,
I think this is actually what is distorted.
Yeah, you asked earlier, when you're explaining things to people and you assume they know what you know, this is something that you would think would be just common sense to everyone. But the amount of times I've had people come up to me after a talk and say, I never understood that fully. Just because the economy is so distorted and the fiat system has distorted people so heavily. But I loved what you mentioning the word anxiety, because savings is anxiety reduction technology in a way, the same way Bitcoin is savings.
Yeah. All right. Next one.
Okay. So if you understand that people who create more value in the world accumulate savings, and that they cannot save in the default option which is their fiat currency, they have to look to other things, other scarce assets. I'm in Canada. I spent most of my life in Australia. The most common form of, your piggy bank in these two countries is housing. And so you see that housing starts to attract value in excess of what it would otherwise command in terms of its market price, right? And this is the idea of a monetary premium. So it's the excess amount that an asset basically has built into it, because these additional units of currency kind of have to go somewhere. People are looking for a way to store their wealth. And then, obviously this is amplified by the fact that we're in a system where people can get exceptionally high amounts of leverage if they are going to put what they borrow specifically into a house. So yeah, just understanding when you see a piece of real estate valued at, say, $1 million, understanding there are two components to that price.
Mm-hmm. People are using homes as a substitute for a function of money, which is actually pretty wild that we're there, right? Like that kind of signals to me that we're pretty far off the track of where we should be if we had a normally functioning money.
Yeah, exactly. And these are all just these terrible side effects. You've got a normal functioning money, well, people can save in it. They have less mental bandwidth going towards, investing. And then, your housing and other scarce assets don't command a monetary premium. So, people who want to purchase a house, and that's really what they want to do, they're not battling against a cohort of investors who are equally, if not more, incentivized to look for somewhere to store their wealth.
All right, next one.
So this is really kind of putting those two ideas together. And this is also very much the thesis of, if anyone's read Jeff Booth's book, The Price of Tomorrow. And this kind of ties back to certainty versus uncertainty more than scarcity and abundance, really. The more you understand how central banking works and debt-based systems work, and you do the math, and you understand that mathematically this number must increase in terms of the number of currency units in a debt-based system over time must go up, you realize that more and more of those additional units are going to be looking for other places to park. Housing is obviously the example most people seem to get most intuitively, but when you've got abundant money or ever-increasing supply of money, it's going to chase these scarce assets, bidding up their price. And the inverse of that is having a finite supply money, where it's completely known, verifiable, certain. Well, now you're looking to create value for others, and maybe that's by building housing to sell and put your profits or your savings into that scarce money. So when money's functioning, essentially it acts like a magnet. So before you had scarce assets, they're a magnet for all this fiat currency, and now you have Bitcoin as a magnet draining the monetary premium in all these scarce assets over time as it becomes monetized.
I really like this one. Made me think of an image that I actually created. I don't know if I can pull it up as this one. I don't know if you can properly see it, but I called this like the Bitcoin paradigm shift. So on the top left, you see people are incentivized to consume, right? Because fiat money, which has an ever-growing supply, is basically chasing a stable productivity. As you said, or I think has also been mentioned before, like if the reward that I can get for creating value is more and more, if more and more of this reward is created, my incentive to actually build something goes down, and my incentive to consume actually goes up, right? So there is no increased productivity because the reward is basically infinite, and people are not incentivized to be more productive. Whereas with Bitcoin, productivity is being put into the Bitcoin, basically. The productivity is chasing the Bitcoin instead of the fiat money is chasing the productivity. So on a Bitcoin standard, people are incentivized to build And so a growing productivity is then chasing a finite money supply, which eventually also leads to prices going down, right? And so if we go back to your example here with the real estate, the idea is that if people follow me on X, they see that from time to time I update the average home selling prices in my country and price them in Bitcoin. They're going up last 11 years with 120% in fiat and down 99.7% in Bitcoin, right? So if you have these, like you said, scarce money leads to asset abundance. Like more and more assets want to be turned into this Bitcoin. So that is why your purchasing power goes up in Bitcoin terms over time.
Yeah, and one other fundamental question on that is, just think of giving someone a choice. You can move to two different countries. One, productivity is going down, and one, productivity is going up because people are incentivized to create value from one another. Where do you want to move? Yeah, and it just perfectly explains why Bitcoiners seek out other Bitcoiners, because they're they want to opt in to this, booming productivity economy.
Slowly but surely, people are figuring out that this is a superior money, and you cannot have everyone at the same time realizing that, right? Yeah. Because then I think we'll have some very big issues, but which are valid. But conceptually, I totally disagree with that, right? Like, if I want to move to a better money, I should be able to do that. If there's no trust in the money that I'm forced to use, I should be able to do that. But that's exactly why they're cooking the numbers right in front of you on the TV, right? Yeah. Next one.
So this goes to what you're just mentioning now: is how does that shift happen from the bad money to the good money? And in the past, going from gold to U.S. government bonds was very controlled. It was done in a very controlled way. And by the way, this chart is global reserve capital. So you've probably seen images out there or infographics out there about global reserve currency, and that changing between, from the Spaniards to the French franc to the British pound to US dollar. Those are currency. The Dutch, sorry, the Dutch are in there. Yes, the guilder was very dominant for a big chunk of an important part of history. And so just making that distinction between currency and capital. Capital is what are companies, countries, and individuals like capitalizing on? What's the base layer of their, business, family, country, what have you? And so, it's kind of like going from sound money to unsound money to sound money again, with the US treasuries in between. And the line between the transition from green to orange is sloped because, like you said, Bram, you're not going to have just an overnight step function change. It would be incredibly chaotic. It's like someone yelling fire in a movie theater and everyone trying to get out at the same time, and it's just not possible. So, this is going to take decades probably to fully transition. But point of this is just to understand the difference between currency and capital.
Would you say that it is also easier? It's easier to go from hard money, from gold to fiat money, than that's less of a shock than going from fiat, mega paper money back to a hard money, especially something that has an absolute finite supply.
Yeah, I mean, if you understand Bitcoin, it's global, it's permissionless. There's really nothing to stop people adopting it, and that will just happen gradually over time as people opt out of, saving in, say, government bonds. So going from gold to treasuries was not very difficult when everything was so centralized. Gold is analog money. You have to physically move it to trade. So, that transition could happen in a very controlled way by very motivated governments. The next transition, I think, is going to be a bit messier, a bit more dispersed, harder to predict, but it'll definitely be more gradual.
Oh, this one I really like. I saw this one before.